EOES, the Emergency Operations Center, is operating and coordinating with local and federal agencies. U.S. Attorney Bill Saley also chiming in online, saying the FBI is responding in the hopes of determining whether this was an intentional act. It's hard to think this was anything but intentional given the scope. How anyone would have explosive large enough in their vehicle to create this kind of damage. You can come up with some ideas, but this does seem to be problematic when it's parked that closely to a fertility clinic and you have this level of damage. Desert Regional Medical Center, again, a 24-hour level 1 trauma center. It's the only level 1 trauma center in the Coachella Valley, covering about 8,000 square miles. We are also getting our first response from the doctor who is in charge of this clinic. He wrote to Facebook today from the clinic's Facebook page, "We choose hope. This morning, an unexpected and tragic incident occurred outside our Palm Springs facility when a vehicle exploded in the parking lot near our building." He goes on to say, "We are heartbroken to learn that this event claimed a life and caused injuries, and our deepest condolences go out to the individuals and families affected." He writes, "We are heavily conducting a complete safety inspection and have confirmed that our operations and sensitive medical areas were not impacted by this blast." The doctor also saying, out of every tragedy, there is an opportunity to come together with deeper purpose. That again, Dr. Maher Abdallah, who runs the American Reproductive Centers clinic that was damaged in this explosion in Palm Springs, confirming nobody at the clinic was injured. The lab itself was undamaged. And again, all of the embryos and eggs that are being stored at this facility are said to be safe and accounted for. You can imagine the panic of some couples out there or some women out there who have their embryos and their eggs stored here. It is not an easy process to extract eggs from the human body. It is an outpatient procedure, but any woman who has gone through it can tell you this is not an easy thing. This isn't you're back to work right afterwards. This takes some time. It is a painful procedure, and so all these women who have their material stored there can breathe a little sigh of relief right now, knowing, according to this post from the clinic, that their embryos, their eggs, their materials are safe. They are accounted for. So again, on the right side of your screen, you can see this must have been shortly after the explosion because there is still dark smoke. The building was on fire. And you can see firefighters actively responding. On the other side of that building is the parking lot. So on the left side of your screen, again, a live look from Air 7, who is now circling this scene. But look in the roadway here, the extensive damage that was sent out. That, I believe, is actually Indian Canyon Drive. So that is facing the hospital. Across the street, across Indian Canyon Drive, is Desert Regional. This is a fertility clinic on the other side of the street from the hospital. And this was not, the side we're looking at right now, I believe, is not the side where the explosion took place. So that car was parked on the back side. We're talking about the left of our screen here. It was parked in the parking lot. The explosion ripped through the building and blew out the front facade of that building into the street, onto Indian Canyon Drive. Firefighters still on scene. In the foreground of that shot was the Regional Medical Center, Desert Regional, where they suffered some damage too. Some windows blown out on a second-story balcony, a patio outside. And again, on the right side of your screen, this is video taken by witnesses, bystanders. This is on the ground looking at the building as it's still smoldering. It's amazing when you look at the damage here that anything in that building survived, that they were able to maintain those eggs, those embryos, and the lab itself, we are told, is okay, did survive this. So it's likely the lobby, the administrative area. We have to worry about record keeping at this point, although you hope most of that is digitized and somewhere accessible. But we can see papers and it looks like some cabinets, some pieces of building lining the roadway, and that is all stuff that this business used in the handling of their work. And so this is across the street now. This is the opposite side of the explosion itself, debris reaching the entrance or the exit to Desert Regional. And you can see the response here on the scene from those Palm Springs fire trucks and ambulances. Palm Springs choosing to go with the white trucks, but those are just your average fire trucks, just painted a different color, not what we're entirely used to seeing, but that is Palm Springs. Those who live there and visit are aware. I'm told there is a body. Yes, okay, so here is the one person who was killed in this blast, or subsequent to this blast. We don't exactly know whether this we have heard from authorities that the suspect is dead. We don't believe there are any additional fatalities in this, and we don't know whether the person, that suspect, was killed in the blast itself or in an encounter with law enforcement or someone else. And so we do know one person is there under that sheet on scene, it looked like on the roadway. I have yet to see that body in any of our aerial footage unless I have just missed it. But we cannot say at this time whether that person was killed in the explosion or whether they were killed by another cause, perhaps an interaction with law enforcement. But again, on the left side, we are getting an overhead look at the aftermath of this explosion. This is not the side of the building where the car was parked. If we pan to the left, I'm not sure if our pilot and camera operator can hear us, but to the left is the parking lot. Back there, you can see the remains of that car. For the damage that we're seeing to this building, I don't believe where the car wound up is where the car began, where it was. You'd have to think it was parked right outside the doorway in the parking lot and was blown backwards. This is the street side, but if our camera operator can pan up, we can see where that car is. It's just a charred husk of a vehicle. On the right side looks like the one fatality covered with a sheet lying in the roadway. And I don't see any debris on the road here in that shot, which leads me to believe that this did not happen. This person did not perish right outside the clinic. I could be wrong and we could be seeing things a little off, but it doesn't look like that person is lying down in a roadway at the scene of this explosion. That is something the FBI is now going to be investigating. Palm Springs detectives, the state OES is investigating this as well, but this is a live look on the left of Desert Regional Medical Center. The damage, the force of this blast, breaking those windows are either third or fourth floor level, because this patio, it looks like, is at least the second floor, maybe a little higher, and those windows are not on that level. They are basically a floor above, so it looks like third or fourth story windows were blown out from this explosion across the street, and not even directly across the street. Look at the difference here. This is not parallel. These are not parallel debris fields. Where this building is and where those windows are shattered across the street, and you wonder whether this was the concussive force that blew out that glass or pieces of debris from the explosion that did this. This is, again, on the other side of an adjacent building here. You can see some debris here as well. This is an explosion. Looks like pieces of the car. That might be a front bumper or a rear bumper over this building. Look at the roof of this building. The windows have been blown out. This is an adjacent building. Looks like they might share the parking lot. But these are buildings that are just next door to this parking lot. And it looks like there was some kind of firefight here or some water rushing out. That is active water rushing out of this apartment or unit here. I don't know if this is housing or if this is a business. It does look like some housing, but it could also be just an office space with typical architecture of Palm Springs. But that is active water pouring out of this unit and onto the ground below. And again, this is the backside of another adjacent building, pretty far in distance from the reproductive clinic. Again, we cannot understate how forceful this explosion was as we continue to get some news in here. The FBI is now responding to this scene with police and fire partners at this explosion. Bomb technicians and evidence response team are en route, if not already there. They say contact local authorities, but they are telling people, as are those in the area, to stay away from this. Again, from the clinic itself, on that Facebook post, they said, "We are immensely grateful to share that no members of the ARC team were harmed, and our lab, including all eggs, embryos, and reproductive materials, remains fully secure and undamaged." Incredible that happened there, that this was not touched by this explosion. They continue, "Our mission has always been to help build families, and in times like these, we are reminded of just how fragile and precious life is. In the face of this tragedy, we remain committed to creating hope because we believe that healing begins with community, compassion, and care. Out of every tragedy, there is an opportunity to come together with deeper purpose. While today's events have shaken us all, they also shine a light on the strength of our community. the bravery of our first responders and the resilience of the families we serve. So that is, you're seeing more of this statement from Dr. Maher Abdallah, who runs the reproductive clinic, the American Reproductive Center's clinic here in Palm Springs. But again, if you're just now tuning in, if you're just joining us, this is a live look from Air 7 in Palm Springs. This is a fertility clinic that was hit by, it looks like a car bomb today, a major explosion in this parking lot. And if you look in the center of your screen, that's the remains of the car, we believe. And you can see kind of like the drag marks going across the parking lot to where that wound up in the middle of the parking lot. It looks like maybe a dumpster structure, but the car is there. And it looks like it slid across the parking lot, blew the front of the building out onto the street, and then blew out windows across the street at Desert Regional Medical Center, at the other buildings in that parking lot, 1, 2, 3, all suffering some major damage here. And on the right side of your screen, this is video sent in from eyewitnesses. This is the direct aftermath. The building is still on fire at this point. Firefighters back in the parking lot working to either put out the car or the building itself. These are more buildings that were damaged very close to this explosion. And pieces of the vehicle or the building were sent up and over those other adjacent buildings and into this parking lot. And again, windows blown out. We saw water rushing from the window of another unit in an adjacent building to this parking lot. But a major explosion rocking Palm Springs this morning. This happened a little after 11 o'clock, and firefighters, FBI, more investigators are responding. You can see on the live look from Air 7, you can see some walking down Indian Canyon Drive right now. That is where this explosion took place, and the roof of this building just crumpling over this explosion. The two ends, the two wings of the building look like they are largely intact. You would think that is where the laboratory would be, since that is what survived this explosion. But look at the roof. The tiles have been shaken on the other building. Windows have been blown out. Crumpled in the middle there is what's left of, we believe, the car where these explosives were housed. It's just, it's hard to make out what kind of car this was. It just looks like a normal kind of sedan, but we cannot tell. There's nothing left but the frame. I don't know, Mike is more of a car expert, our director, if he can recognize anything resembling any kind of make or model from that. It's pretty tough at this point to make anything out, but you can see exactly where the car was parked, the streaks on the ground, dragging that car across, and it looks like it was parked just directly outside the door. The entire wall of that building is gone. The roof has collapsed, and this building is a mess. Again, somehow the laboratory inside this fertility clinic was undamaged. All of the reproductive materials, the embryos, the eggs have survived this explosion, and one person has been killed in this. 5 others have been injured. We are told that anyone who works at this facility, which it looks like was the target of this explosion, is okay. We have seen a sheet covering that one body, which we assume is the one body, and we're hearing from law enforcement that is the suspect in this case, lying on the ground, covered in that sheet. So oftentimes in mass casualty events, they don't often count the suspect among those killed. Those can be counted separately. But in this, we believe the one fatality was the suspect themselves. We are awaiting word from law enforcement on scene whether this was someone who lost their life in the explosion or whether they were killed in some kind of altercation with police. So I just saw in the adjacent building there, El Mirador Medical Plaza. That is, I believe, separate from the hospital itself, or is that part of the hospital? Let's see. So the Medical Plaza is there part of Desert Regional's, it's their outpatient surgery center. Okay, so that is part of officially Desert Regional Medical Center. That El Mirador Medical Plaza is part of that facility. This is the large gathering of law enforcement here. I don't know what jurisdiction those white trucks are for, but we did know that FBI is on scene. Palm Springs Police has responded. Palm Springs Fire is on scene as well. And okay, we have her right now. Okay, let's go right now to Elena Gomez, our reporter who is now on scene. She is joining us on the phone. Elena, where are you and what can you see?
Yeah, so I am at the end of Via Lola and North Indian Canyon Drive right now. So this is at the very end of the perimeter. So if you're familiar with Palm Springs, you get off on the 10. That is sort of the road that is blocked off at the road of Stevens to Via Lola. So I'm at the very end of where it's blocked off. But where the explosion happened is just pretty close to me, probably like a block or so away, but obviously it's blocked off. So I calculated just how far. It's about less than half a mile is blocked. So a big part of this main thoroughfare here is blocked off at the moment. There's police, fire. There's a bus even stopped right here. And just sort of the surrounding area from where I am, there's a lot of residential homes that are off of the sort of the main area here. And so everyone's kind of being diverted to kind of go around this main road here off of North Indian Canyon at the moment.
All right, Elena, stand by. We will continue to check in with you momentarily. I just want to take us back to Air 7 because I believe we found the location of where that body is. This is on the back. This is on the back road from where this explosion took place. So this is a good ways away from the explosion itself. There is the body covered with a sheet in the middle of the road, and this is a good distance. So again, we are waiting word from law enforcement. That roadway is blocked as well. That might be Palm Canyon Drive. If I'm just looking for, no, this is, let's see. It is Via Lola. Is that Via Lola? On the other side of the roadway. So that body is a good distance away from the explosion itself. Again, we don't know whether that person was killed directly from the result of this explosion or whether this was an encounter with law enforcement trying to get away. But this was a massive, massive explosion. And if we can get back to Elena right now, there are ways, Elena, there are ways around for those who are going to downtown Palm Springs. This is the main drag, basically, Palm Canyon Drive, and then Indian Canyon Drive is the northbound road when you're in downtown Palm Springs. That is closed a little bit outside of downtown. But what are you seeing right now? The response, are there people around watching? Can you see any smoke in the area? What's the scene, the tone of the scene there?
Yeah, no smoke, and honestly, not a lot of people exactly here kind of walking around. I mean, there are some people kind of walking around, but not a lot of people just stopping to look at this area. I don't see any smoke. I will say in Palm Springs right now, even driving in, it was incredibly windy right now, and it is still fairly windy in this area as well. So I'm not seeing any smoke at the moment. I just see a lot of staging set up. So I'm seeing at least 2 fire trucks here, multiple sheriffs. I mean, this is just sprawled out, like I said, for about less than half a mile or so, just down that main thoroughfare here. Police stations, the whole area blocked off with yellow tape at the moment. I try to talk to some other officers to see where sort of the great staging area would be for media so we can start to get some updates, and they're still working on that. So obviously the scene is still flowing at the moment, but yes, multiple officers here, 2 fire trucks that I can see from where I'm at. But yeah, a whole area here is really stretched and blocked off for the time being.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that report. Please check in if you learn anything else. I'd love to hear from people who are in the area who heard this. We have reports that this was heard all the way around Palm Springs, and given the force of this explosion, we imagine that most of the city was able to feel this, knew something had happened. I know a lot of people said they felt the ground shaking, thought this might have been an earthquake. But again, that was Palm Canyon Drive. Now on the left of your screen, Indian Canyon Drive is where this building is. But the body is back on the back side of Palm Canyon Drive. There is a ground level look at it. This is not close to where this explosion took place. On the left side is Indian Canyon Drive. This is the front of the building, but it's the opposite side of the building from where this car bomb went off. It ripped through the entire building, blew out the doors on this side of the building. And when Air 7 circles back around, I want to take a look again at the explosion side, the parking lot side of this building. But there is the car we believe that the explosives were housed in. This car bomb going off a little after 11 o'clock this morning, and it just completely ripped the front of this building, collapsed the roof. We don't know if anyone was inside at the time, but what an experience that would have been for those who are going through this. Again, the lab that stores all the embryos and the eggs and the reproductive materials, we are told, survived, made it through this explosion somehow, were not damaged. And so all of those prospective parents out there who were hoping they would be able to use this material to grow a family, to start a family, that is still intact and made it through this explosion. And so that is a great glimmer of good news out of this terror that ripped through Palm Springs today. As Air 7 continues to cycle around, you can see ARC, American Reproductive Centers, on Indian Canyon Drive. This is the target. At the bottom of our screen, we can just see make out the sidewalk. That is Palm Canyon Drive. That's the main drag when you leave the freeway to get to downtown Palm Springs. That leads you into downtown. That is where the body of the believed suspect in this explosion is lying beneath a sheet. That, we believe, is the only person who was killed. 5 others, we are told, were injured in this. The FBI is now investigating, as are multiple other law enforcement agencies from this area and around the state. The governor is aware of what has happened, and it says the Office of Emergency Management is now taking part in this investigation. This is a crime scene that will likely be closed well into the night, if not well into tomorrow as well. There is a lot to look at here. There is a death in this case. There are multiple injuries, and we have what looks like a possible terrorist attack. Motives unknown at this point, but it does look like an intentional act by this believed suspect, who is, we believe, we are told, is beneath that sheet there, lying in the middle of Palm Canyon Drive. Again, this was a very powerful explosion. All of the adjacent buildings around here have suffered damage. Those not connected with this facility, I think we're looking at one right now. That looks like the windows were blown out. There's damage and debris all around this building, even on sides that weren't exposed to this blast. The concussive force so strong that it took out windows, and it took out, we know at least there's one water pipe burst in a unit in an adjacent building in this parking lot. The roof is damaged. All of those HVAC units will likely need to be fixed. All these windows will need to be replaced, and merchandise inside of these, looks like this is a store here, will need to be replaced. And boy, this was a large and scary explosion here at this fertility clinic. Fortunately, no one involved in this clinic was killed. And we see all these buildings here in the adjacent buildings in the parking lot suffer damage. This is a little further away. I'm not sure if we can look and see. It looks like they suffered damage as well. It looks like a window is there on the ground on the left. Yep, we see debris. All these windows look like they are blown out. And so again, this is now 2 or 3 buildings away from this explosion, and they suffered damage as well. Most incredible to me is the fact, when we look across the street the other way, that the hospital itself suffered damage. Wow. Look, this is the backside, about 2 blocks away. They suffered damage, and all of these windows blew out. This, again, this is a building, this is a structure that does not face this explosion, and somehow the concussive force was able to blow out the windows at this hotel onto the pool area. And so they suffered. When we zoom back out here, look at where this is in connection to where this building is. So that's Palm Canyon Drive at the top of your screen as we just continue to look for more damage around here. These are buildings that are not close to the explosion, and yet suffered all this damage on exposures that don't face the explosion itself. So here's Palm Canyon Drive. Look at the building that we just looked at with the pool. Those rear buildings were blown out, and the explosion was back up the road and across this parking lot way to the right, the opposite side of where those windows were blown out. It's now at the bottom of your screen. So just the reach of this explosion and where this damage hit is just staggering to see directionally where it traveled. It's incredible that this one explosion from a car in a parking lot on one block could affect the opposite side of large structures, hotel windows, blocks away. And again, on the right side, this is video taken by witnesses on scene shortly after it. There's still black smoke rising into the air. The building was on fire, and we're going to be able to see a firefighter there extending hose to put out some fire, either the car that was still burning in the parking lot or the building itself, which again looks somehow is it's red tagged at this point. It looks like a total loss, but somehow the lab inside of that building survived. We know that medical facilities have been targets before. Abortion clinics have been targets for decades with attacks and bombs and assaults and murders. And one has to wonder whether the person who pulled this off believed this to be an abortion clinic or a facility connected to abortions, and whether that might have been a motivation in this attack. But as we know it, this is a fertility clinic working on things like IVF, embryo, egg extraction, working on growing families. And so whatever it is, it's a disturbing attack, and it's a scary attack to happen in our area here. This explosion ripping through Palm Springs a little after 11 a.m. this morning. I want to welcome in Sophie Flay, who's now joining us for more on this coverage.
Yes, and again, as you mentioned earlier, Jory, we know that from this reproductive center, all eggs, embryos, and reproductive medical and materials remain fully secure and undamaged. That is from a statement that we got from that reproductive center, the American Reproductive Center here. And so we know, thankfully that those within that center, we know that those are okay. Again, if you are looking at your screen right now, we are taking you, this is a live look from Air 7 over that reproductive center. And we know from people that have called in that this was heard from far away, not just next door. So many people heard this explosion, and so many buildings in the surrounding area were impacted by this explosion. As Jory has been mentioning, we've seen windows blown out. We've seen doors blown out. We've seen at this building here, you can see that there is water pouring out of whatever building this is, whether it's housing or it's an office space. We know that this has impacted so many of the structures around the explosion. Again, here is a closer look of really how badly impacted this building was from this car explosion. You can see some furniture kind of thrown to the side there from where this attack happened, and even into the street. I mean, debris falling from this building straight into the street here. You can see parts of the building. You can see bricks. I mean, the roof just fully kind of blown out here on this street, right outside of the reproductive center. Hoses, it looks like. So much destroyed. Luckily, we know again that the eggs, the embryos, the reproductive materials that is housed by the center, those are okay. But you can see, I think that car there that was involved in that explosion, you can see completely just decimated right next door to where this explosion happened. Yeah, from one of the witnesses who are on scene, from Alan, who I believe sent us some video, said he was on scene. He lives in Palm Springs during weekends, and he's in Hermosa Beach during the week. Said that this noise was the loudest I ever heard outside a crash of an A7 jet hitting the University of Arizona in Tucson that he eyewitnessed, and just. That tracks now with what we're seeing as the aftermath, Sophie. I mean, the parking lot is where this car is, and most of the damage is on the front side, the far side of the building, and the hospital across the street. All of the adjacent buildings in this parking lot suffered damage. Buildings in the surrounding blocks suffered damage. This was a major explosion, and I'm looking forward to hearing from law enforcement to see what could have made this explosion so powerful. What kind of explosives were used? Who do we have? We have Alan? Okay, great. We have Alan, who shot some video for us, joining us on the phone. Alan, thanks for taking this video for us and getting it to us. And if you could just kind of walk us through what your morning was like going through this.
It was a unique sound. It's like a sonic boom, and that was about 10:55, almost 11 a.m. And I thought it was an earthquake, because things rattled and knocked off the shelves, and I'm a quarter mile from the bomb site of the explosion, and I never heard anything that unique, except early on in my journalism career. I was a reporter once. I heard a jet crash, an A7 blow up in a street in Tucson near the University of Arizona, and it was the most unique sound. And I thought for sure a helicopter had crashed, or, again, a sonic boom. Maybe it was a Musk rocket that took off. and I never identified it. Neighbors were out, horns were honking from alarms, and I was, like I said, a quarter mile away. I got on my bike, rode up there, and took a look, and fire were just responding the same time I was, and it was just so unbelievable because it was so little smoke, and the smoke that went straight up, and it wasn't a lot, but things were blowing out about at least a block around the site. And the big surprise to me was the unique sound of that explosion. I'll never forget it this far away.
If you could, I know we always hear fireworks this time of year as we lead up to July 4th, and then occasionally we'll hear one that sounds a little different. Was it deeper? Was it the fact that you might have felt it? If you could try and put into words, what was so different about this sound that you hadn't heard before?
Well, exactly. It was a shock wave. It was like a wave of energy that hit the glass first out to the front of my house. It faced the Desert Medical Center, but clearly blocks away. And I saw the glass, it was rattling, and then the boom, and it knocked glasses on shelves around. It knocked a few knickknacks that are in my kitchen, and I was stunned. And the dogs were stunned. They didn't even bark. They just looked at me like, is this safe? And that's what everybody felt. I went out to the driveway, and neighbors were starting to come out and was like, are we safe? Is that, because you couldn't see any smoke. You didn't know what was going on. It was just that blast. So I thought it was just a unique rocket ship. And then I guessed that it had to be near the hospital. And I just figured the gas, what they use in emergency care, something wasn't secure and probably blew up at the hospital. And when I got there, people were running my way against it. And I thought, this is really unique. And then it wasn't the hospital. It was across the street in a very small explosion space for such a huge noise and a big shock wave that was felt now, I believe, a mile, at least 2 miles away from it.
Yeah.
It was really unique to see only one building blowing out and blowing through. And I went behind it before the firemen came, and there was a guy and his wife back there, and he said he was an explosive guy. I know you were talking to one earlier, and he said that had to be a car bomb because it's blasted from this courtyard where he and I were looking, and it went out to the east, and we were in the west part of the building, the courtyard where the car was smoldering, and there were car parts all over the place. Bumpers and ripped siding, and he said that had to be a car bomb, and the way it fanned out. And then, of course, police came, firemen, and they were very nice, actually, and just said, step aside. You probably should get out of here. We don't know if it's a single explosion, which made sense. And so we scattered and got our pictures and looked around, and at least that half-mile radius, I never saw such destruction except maybe the Northridge earthquake.
Yeah, Alan, you mentioned that you got there, pretty quickly before even some emergency responders. What was it like? Was it busy? Was it not busy? What was it like when you first got there?
I was surprised that I wouldn't call it chaotic. It was just people were stunned, and there had to be 200 or 300 people that left their houses and hotels nearby, and were just wandering around looking nervous, maybe scared, I'm sure. And it was uncomfortable. And the surprise to me was the hospital, that there were no gurneys, no paramedics, nobody but fire and police were showing up right after us. At that scene, and it wasn't really secure yet, that they got their hoses out immediately and started watering down. And I was expecting, sadly, human remains, body parts from something like this, but nothing. But I'm sure it had to be a car bomb because it looked like it was in the middle of a courtyard. It was a smoldering car, which I had a picture of the fire hose, just got there about the time I'm taking the picture. And it looked like everything had blasted to the east. But people were pretty surprised and stunned, helpful, talkative. And the big surprise is I can't believe more people weren't hurt, because the parts of the car and glass were a good 3, 4, 5 blocks around that explosion area.
Wow.
And it was in the street and parking areas, and people's car shattered and broken.
Yeah.
It's just so odd.
Yeah, and it looks like that car was sent all the way across that courtyard from the building front to the middle. Alan, I want to thank you. Thanks for putting your reporter hat on for us again, and doing what you do best. We really appreciate it. Thank you for watching and for letting us know what you see. I'd love to talk to you more. I know that Air 7 has about just a few minutes left of fuel for us to be able to continue this coverage. So for this stream right now, we do need to wrap up our coverage. We have about a minute and a half left, but just recapping the day's events. Around 11 o'clock today, it looks like a car bomb went off outside a fertility clinic in Palm Springs. It blew the entire building. The front of it is off. The backside blew out onto the roadway, Indian Canyon Drive. Desert Regional Medical Center is across the street. That suffered damage. All of the buildings in the adjacent parking lot, those suffered damage. Resorts in the surrounding blocks, those also suffered damage as well. And the cleanup is not going to begin until the investigation continues.
And we know at least 5 people have been injured in this explosion. A suspect is believed to be dead, according to ABC News. And we will continue to bring you updates as our reporters arrive on scene. They will be giving you firsthand accounts of what they are seeing after this huge explosion.
Elena Gomez, our reporter, is on scene. She is gathering interviews and reports right now. We also have other sources in the area who are continuing to see what is going on, but we will continue our coverage throughout the afternoon and the evening of what appears to be an attack on a fertility clinic in Palm Springs. Our next coverage, I believe, will be 3:30. We come on the air on Air 7 at 3:30 this afternoon for Eyewitness News. And in the meantime, you can continue to cover our streaming channel, our ABC7 Los Angeles app, and our website, abc7.com. We also send out push alerts and updates to all of our social media accounts, so make sure you tune in. Again, we'll have the latest coming up on this major explosion in Palm Springs that you are seeing the aftermath of, coming up on Eyewitness News at 3:30.
We'll see you then.